You're speaking, but they aren't listening. You see their eyes drift to their phones, or worse, they talk right over you as if you're a ghost in the room. Your first instinct is to raise your voice, to fight for the space, to demand the respect you know you deserve. But the moment you shout, you've already lost. You've signaled to everyone in the room that you have lost control of the one thing you are supposed to master, yourself. There is a specific kind of power that doesn't require volume. It's the power of the person who speaks softly because they know the room will eventually go silent just to hear them. This is not about being nice, and it certainly isn't about being passive. It is about a psychological concept called vocal economy. When you realize that words are a currency, you stop spending them so recklessly. Today we are going to look at the 6 phrases that shift the power dynamic in any room, moving you from someone who is overlooked to someone who is undeniable. Before we get to the phrases, we have to understand why we feel the need to shout in the first place. This is what psychologists call the status volume paradox. In nature and in human social hierarchies, the individual with the highest status is rarely the loudest. Think of a predator in the wild. It doesn't growl until it's ready to strike. The growl is a warning, but the silence is the threat. When we raise our voices, we are actually signaling a threat response. We are telling the other person's brain that we feel threatened, and in response, their brain triggers its own defense mechanism. They stop hearing your logic and start feeling your aggression. By the end of this, you will understand how to use language as a scalpel rather than a sledgehammer. But there is a trap here. A mistake most people make when they try to be assertive that actually makes them look incredibly weak. We'll address that transition shortly, but first let's look at the first phrase that changes the game. The first phrase is, "I'm sure that wasn't your intention." This is a masterstroke of psychological framing. Imagine someone interrupts you or makes a passive-aggressive comment at your expense. Most people either shrink away or bark back. Instead, you say, calmly and with steady eye contact, "I'm sure that wasn't your intention, but when you interrupted, I didn't get to finish my point." Why does this work? It's called the benign interpretation. By telling the other person you assume they had good intentions, you are actually doing 2 things. First, you are taking the high ground. You are showing that you are too composed to be offended. Second, you are giving them a golden bridge to retreat across. If you call them a jerk, they will fight you. If you tell them you assume they were just being helpful or accidental, they are forced to agree with you to save face. It puts you in the position of the mentor or the judge rather than the victim. It is the ultimate display of social intelligence. But what happens when the other person isn't just accidental? What if they are being deliberately difficult? This is where people usually lose their cool. They feel the heat rising in their chest and they want to snap. But there is a second phrase that acts like a cold bucket of water on a fire. The second phrase is, "Help me understand the logic behind that." When someone makes an unreasonable demand, a ridiculous criticism, or an emotional outburst, do not defend yourself. Defending yourself is a low-status move. It implies that you are beneath the person and must justify your existence to them. Instead, flip the script. Ask them to explain themselves. Psychologically, this is the Socratic method in action. Most people speak from emotion, not logic. When you ask them to explain their logic, they often realize in real time that they don't have any. You aren't attacking them. You are simply asking for clarity. Because you are asking the question, you are the one in control of the frame. You are the interviewer, and they are the subject. Notice how this requires no shouting. In fact, the quieter and more curious you sound, the more pressure the other person feels to make sense, and usually they can't. Now there is a danger here. If you use these phrases with a smirk or a condescending tone, they will fail. True authority is not snarky, it is neutral. This leads us to the third phrase, which is perhaps the most difficult to master, because it requires you to be comfortable with the one thing most people fear: silence. The third phrase is, "I'll wait until you're ready." Think about a chaotic meeting or a heated argument at home. Everyone is talking over each other. The volume is peaking. In that moment, you don't try to shout over the noise. You stop speaking entirely. You fold your hands, you look at the person who is being the loudest, and you wait. When a gap finally opens, you say, "I'll wait until you're ready for me to finish." This is a demonstration of high-status silence. It communicates that your time and your words are valuable. It signals that you will not compete for attention. You don't need to fight for the floor because the floor belongs to you by default. The moment you say this, the social pressure shifts entirely onto the person who is being disruptive. They suddenly look like a child, and you look like the only adult in the room. But here is where most people lose control. They get the floor, and then they talk too much. They over-explain. They try to sell their idea because they were desperate for approval. If you want to be taken seriously, you must understand that the more you explain, the less power you have. This brings us to our fourth phrase. That doesn't work for me. This is the anchor phrase. Most of us are conditioned to give long, rambling excuses when we say no. I'd love to help, but I have this thing, and my car is acting up, and I really should stay home. All of that is noise. It gives the other person hooks to pull at. If you say your car is acting up, they'll offer you a ride. Now you're trapped. When you simply say, that doesn't work for me, or I'm not able to do that, you are setting an absolute boundary. You are not asking for permission to say no. You are stating a fact about your reality. When you don't provide a list of excuses, there is nothing for the other person to argue with. It feels heavy. It feels final. It feels like authority. Now we're moving into the territory of deep psychological influence. The next two phrases are about how you steer a conversation toward a resolution without ever appearing pushy. This is where the masters of negotiation live. The fifth phrase is, what would need to happen for us to reach a solution here? Done. This is a calibrated question. It shifts the brain of the other person from conflict mode to problem-solving mode. When you are in an argument, you are on opposite sides of the table. When you ask this question, you are essentially walking around the table and sitting next to them, looking at the problem together. It's an incredible tool because it forces the other person to do the work for you. Instead of you trying to convince them of your way, you are asking them to define a path that satisfies you both. It is the hallmark of someone who is focused on results rather than ego. People who shout are focused on their ego. They want to be right. People who are taken seriously are focused on the outcome. But there is one final phrase, and this is the one that actually changes everything. It is the phrase used by the most powerful leaders, the most respected mentors, and the most centered individuals. It is the phrase that ends the need for shouting forever. The sixth phrase is, I hear your point, but that's not what I'm asking. This is frame maintenance. In any interaction, there is a frame, the unspoken theme of what is actually happening. If someone tries to distract you with a side argument or an emotional jab, they are trying to pull you into their frame. If you follow them, you lose. By saying, I hear your point, but that's not what I'm asking, you are gently but firmly snapping the conversation back to your agenda. You are acknowledging them, which prevents them from feeling ignored. But you are refusing to be led. It is the verbal equivalent of a brick wall covered in velvet. It's soft to the touch, but it isn't moving. When you begin to use these 6 phrases, you will notice a shift in your internal chemistry. You will feel your heart rate slow down. You will feel your posture straighten. This is because these phrases are built on a foundation of self-respect. You are no longer a person who is begging for a seat at the table. You are the person who defines the table. True authority is not a performance. It is a reflection of your internal state. If you are chaotic inside, you will be loud outside. If you are disciplined inside, you can be quiet outside and still move mountains. This is a transition from seeking validation to exercising mastery. It is the realization that you do not need to make people listen to you. You simply need to be the kind of person who is worth listening to. The world is full of noise. Everyone is shouting, trying to be the loudest voice in the digital and physical room. But the people who truly change things, the ones who are remembered and respected, are the ones who understand the weight of their words. They don't waste them. They use them with intent. As you go out into your life this week, I want you to try something. The next time you feel the urge to raise your voice, stop. Take a breath. Choose one of these phrases. Watch the reaction of the people around you. You will find that silence, combined with the right words, is the most powerful tool you have. This is about more than just communication. It's about identity. It's about becoming the version of yourself that is so secure in their own value that they no longer feel the need to defend it. If you found value in this psychological breakdown, consider what other areas of your life could use a bit more quiet authority. We explore these themes of mastery, psychology, and personal sovereignty often here. If you're on that journey, you're welcome to join us. Until next time, stay composed, stay sharp, and remember, the loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful.